think we'll go ahead and get started, and if we have a few people hop on, then that's okay. So today, well, for this third session today, I think most of you were on the other two this morning. We are going to talk a little bit about student life here at PSU. Sorry, let me turn this off real quick. And we have some of the women that work in campus activities as well as student diversity programs here with us to kind of provide that update for you. So I'm just going to go ahead and hand it over to Eva, and she will start us off.
Good morning. My name is Eva Steger, and I'm the Associate Director for Campus Activities. And I'm just going to pop a real quick question into the chat, asking what you all were involved in when you were at Pitt State while I get our screen share set up. So if you want to answer, you can in the chat, but you do not have to. Totally optional. All right, and I've got to readjust my screen just a little. Okay. All right, as I said, I'm Eva Steger, and we're going to have the rest of our friends here today introduce themselves really quick. So Emily, do you want to take it away?
Yes, hi everybody. I am Emily Flores, and I'm Assistant Director of Student Diversity Programs. I think I'll just leave it at that.
I'm Mary Mercer. I'm a program coordinator for campus activities, and I'll get into what I specifically do a little bit later.
And I'm Anna Stark. I'm also a program coordinator in campus activities, primarily oversee our fraternity and sorority life community.
We're going to jump right in and talk just a little bit about campus activities. So our goal is to engage students in a transformational experience here at PSU by providing inclusive and dynamic co-curricular experiences, which is typically involvement either in student organizations or some of that traditional programming that we'll get into in an additional slide. And really our goal is to help empower students to reach their potential to do more than maybe they thought they could when they first got to Pitt State. Our office is located at the Overman Student Center. If you have not been on campus in the last 6 years, a few years ago, they did do a renovation and addition of the Student Center. Prior to that, campus activities would have been distributed across several offices located in the basement. And so the addition allowed us to put everybody kind of back together in one spot, and we're kind of on the main corridor when you come into the building, which is nice and helps students be able to find us and get engaged a little bit quicker. And in a recent addition about 2 years ago, we also took over the Gorilla Pantry, which is our food pantry on campus. Anybody with a Pitt State student ID can access that, so faculty, staff, or students. It was originally started by Student Government Association and was housed in Whitesett, kind of in one of those weird half-floor locations, but now it's located in our building right outside of our office, so it's really easy for our students to access. Some of the annual events that we work with include CARES, which is PSU's orientation over the month of June. We have the opportunity to get our students engaged right when they become a Gorilla. Gorilla Gateway, which is our first year class. It used to be called Freshman Experience, and it's been under the name Gorilla Gateway going into the third year this year. Welcome Week, we typically host in the fall a week-long series of events with some other organizations around campus to make sure students are kind of either getting into the groove if this is their first time at Pitt State, or reconnecting if they've been gone over the summer. And then in January, we run kind of a shorter version of that as well. Both welcome weeks do include an organization fair. In the fall, we typically have about 80 organizations that come out and table and engage those students who are looking to join a group. And in January, it tends to be a few less people, but still a reasonable turnout. It's cozy in the ballroom for people to get there. And we try and make sure that we're connecting with those transfer students as well, especially at that translation point in the middle of the year. Our office also directly oversees some elements of Family Day, including a meal with Dr. Scott and some make and take opportunities for our students. They coordinate homecoming week with the homecoming committee, which is overseen by students. And Mary will talk a little bit more about homecoming in a couple of slides down the program. And then Women in Government typically brings a pretty renowned speaker every other year. And when that happens, we work with them to host a dinner for our student leaders. And so they get some one-on-one FaceTime, usually with whoever the speaker is, which has presented some really amazing opportunities, not only for them to engage with that individual, but to also engage with their other leader peers on campus. Our office also typically offers a variety of leadership trainings, depending on when you've been around Pitt State. If you've been around in the spring in the past, it's gone under some different names, the Emerging Leaders Academy, and then basic leadership training. So there's always some kind of annual thing, but that kind of evolves as our students' needs and wants evolves as well. And then we work with Apple Day and the Leadership Awards at PSU. So one of the big things about student organizations on our campus is we do require that they have to have 3 officers, a president, a vice president, and a treasurer. So that might have been a little bit different than when you were students on our campus. And we do require them to have an on-campus advisor. Every organization on our campus also has a constitution that kind of talks a little bit about the purpose and the roles within their group. And then we have a newer website called Guerrilla Engage, which I'm going to ask somebody from Campus Activities to drop in the chat because I can't see the chat on my screen right now. The link for that, you can find it from Pitt State's web pages. But we'll get the website put in there if you all are interested in seeing it. And on that website, our student organizations kind of track their memberships. They also showcase events, and they can create a thing called a co-curricular transcript. So similar to an academic transcript that our students would have that show their courses, the co-curricular transcript shows what organizations they were officially involved in, and it also tracks their membership positions. So if they were president for a year, it'll record that. So if they're applying for honors or scholarships, they can submit that document as well as sort of like a formalized proof that they were in the organizations. They can also track their community service hours through that as well. And if a person goes to Guerrilla Engage, so if you all are curious about it and want to check out the website, anybody can check out the page. There is information that is kind of locked behind a privacy wall that's only for active members of the PSU community, but you can see a full list of all our student organizations, and you can see a listing of events that are open to the public. And if you're curious about what kind of events have been happening over the past few years, when you go to the events page, you can also click on the past events and it'll show you what events have been open for anybody to be able to see. And we'll kind of talk a little bit more about what it's been like in 20 and 21 through this COVID year towards the end of the presentation. So who are these groups and what kind of things do they do? Well, I'm sure some of it's probably not that much different even than it was at the time that you all might have been undergrads. We do have some classifications for our groups. They can identify as a club sport, departmental, honorary, housing, media, multicultural, political, pre-professional, recreation and leisure, religious and spiritual, service, social fraternities and sororities, special interest, or student governance. And so this helps our students, particularly who are looking at connecting with a new student organization, to be able to find things that they are generally interested in. And they do all kind of the standard things that you would expect organizations to be doing. They're hosting meetings and business opportunities. They're running fundraisers. They're doing service and philanthropy projects across campus and in the community. Some of them are traveling to do those service projects. Seen a little less of that this year, but still some experiences for them. There are a lot of professional development opportunities, and we've seen that take a very virtual form this year and still have a lot of opportunity for those students to get some experiences with it. There's awareness projects, craft events on our campus. So lots and lots of different things that they are engaging on in a normal day across campus at Pitt State. And I'm going to turn it over to Mary to talk a little bit about the Guerrilla Activities Board.
Thanks, Eva. Yes, so the Guerrilla Activities Board, it may have been called during your time at Pitt State our Student Union Board or Student Activities Council, but in spring of 2015, they did a name change and a rebrand to Guerrilla Activities Board. And so this group of students plans events. It's so student events planned by students for students. And with their new office in the Student Center, like Eva had mentioned, the renovation in the Overman Student Center, they had a new logo, a new brand. The banana has kind of become their unofficial mascot, and something unique that they have in their office, unfortunately not right now during COVID, but they actually have a ball pit. And so they're all about trying to facilitate connections between students and between faculty and staff, and just getting to know and becoming, having Pitt State become their home. Their mission and vision. Their mission is to provide a variety of engaging on-campus activities designed for Pitt State students in a safe and inclusive environment. And that's actually a pretty important statement to them. It's displayed on their walls in their office, and so they see it every day, and it's how they decide on what events to plan for our campus. And they talk a lot about enhancing the lives of college students. They really approach their work kind of from this servant leadership perspective. And there's a picture of their ball pit in their office. So a little bit about their organization. Generally, they have about 25 to 30 students who are part of it. Currently, their students on the board span about 10 different academic majors. And so that right now includes business, biology, criminal justice, construction, communication, education, geography, nursing, psychology, and recreation. And so this is really an opportunity where students can gain quite a bit of life and career experience that will help them regardless of what their career goals are. And so within that, they also have 10 executive board leadership positions. And so these students kind of do a deep dive in leading the organization and get lots of general leadership experience, experience in event planning and marketing. They get to lead small groups of their peers and just get to practice even things like giving and receiving feedback. So this is really one of these premier ways that students can practice what they're learning in the classroom and then have a great resume and great experiences to talk about once they leave Pitt State. They plan events almost every week. They offer something, and they have committees that these events fall under. And so that includes social and cultural events, spotlight events, which tend to be bringing in performers and doing larger scale entertainment events. Creative events, which are kind of small, maybe things that they develop on our campus. So that might be like a homegrown like tie-dye event, or an idea of like coming and like you're creating a craft and then you're taking it home with you. And then our Nightlife committee focuses on planning events that would happen kind of later, so kind of that 9 to midnight time frame and on the weekends. Some of their annual events that are very popular with PSU students are the foam and powder paint party. So this is a traditional event that's happened on the first night of class. It involves large foam cannons, shooting foam out onto students, throwing colored powder paint up in the air, and just dancing the night away. We offer an annual hypnotist event. And so that actually, we see over 1,000 students go into our Bicknell Family Center for the Arts to come out for this annual hypnotist event. They also, other popular things are casino nights, and then generally in the spring they do some sort of music or dance event. So things looked a little different this year with COVID-19. So their events kind of fell into these 4 categories. Some events were strictly virtual, meaning they happened over Zoom like we are right now. And so some examples of these would include, they brought in a poet, and that poet did a performance, and then the students on the Zoom did a workshop in which they got to write their own poetry and share it. They've done cooking classes over Zoom. They've brought in hosts to do like trivia nights or bingo nights and facilitate that. Some of their hybrid events, meaning that students could tune in virtually or have an in-person experience that was safe and socially distant. They've done some drawing classes. So in the slide is actually a picture. They had a Marvel comic book artist, Will Sliney, and he taught students how to like draw from like a comic book illustrator perspective, which is a really cool experience. And we had quite a few art students participate in that. And then at the end, you can see in the picture, he made Gus into like a superhero gorilla. And then we've also done things called take and makes. So the idea behind this is that students can pick up a kit and then they can take it home and do it at their leisure. And so that's looked like paint by numbers, or with the cooking class that they did online, we had cooking kits that they got to pick up and take home and do that. And then we've had some physically distant in-person events towards the end of the spring. We've brought in to the Bicknell, where students can kind of spread out and watch a comedian and a magician. And then most recently, we had a silent disco event. So some organization highlights for Guerrilla Activities Board. We are our professional organization that provides us resources is the National Association for Campus Activities. And so our students travel to regional and national conferences. This year they would have participated virtually, and they've won in the marketing competition. So we have a great graphics program at Pitt State, and we have graphic design positions and social media chairs. And so they get a lot of hands-on marketing experience and really produce some really awesome things for us. And then this past year, our Guerrilla Activities Board would have been recognized as the Student Organization of the Year, and would have been awarded the Program of the Year for their poetry workshop event. They celebrated 75 years as an organization this September. They were planning to have a reunion, but that now is going to get pushed to the 80th reunion, which will be in September of 2025. And actually in this picture, the one where they're sitting on the bench with Gus is a framed, like the minutes from the 1945 first ever meeting of Student Activities Council that is now hung in their office. And so a little bit about, I had mentioned just like a minute ago, the National Association for Campus Activities. So this is a professional organization where we can connect with other schools who are putting on events for their campuses and just get overall professional development, and also provides some similar leadership training and experiences for our students. The current executive director of NACA is a Pitt State alum, and she's been a great resource. So our students who would have gone to a conference last February in Denver are pictured with her. And then once COVID hit, she actually did a Zoom like training for our student leaders on how to adapt to change and lead remote teams. So one of the other areas that I get to work with is homecoming. And so we are planning homecoming for October 11th through 16th of this year. This is the logo and the theme, Welcome to the Jungle. It's just one of our beloved traditions at Pitt State. So our traditional events, which some of them may be similar to what you experienced and some of them may be very different, involve a kickoff night, which is just kind of a welcome to homecoming, kind of has a carnival feel to it for our students to come and just celebrate the week. Raft races, so our students, as pictured on this slide, build rafts out of cardboard, pool noodles, and duct tape and race them across University Lake. That's a newer event and tradition and really just fun to watch. Yeah Like Hell is the cheer and dance competition that our student organizations put together routines and perform them in the stadium. And then at this event, we also crown our royalty. We continue on with the parade that we host downtown, and that's just a great community event. And then we are looking forward to hopefully having some new additions this year of a campus movie, a cutest pet competition, and a student door decorating competition. Some things we did this past year with COVID-19, we ran quite a few social media competitions. So that did involve, like I'd mentioned before, a cutest pet competition. So people got to put Instagram pictures of their pets dressed in Pitt State gear. And then the winners would receive a sketch of their pet. And so in this slide is pictured one of the cutest pet winners. We also have our homecoming court pictured, and we crowned them via a live stream. So if you actually want to see a virtual pep rally and crowning of our past year's royalty, you can go to pittstate.tv and you can watch that. And that was just a really cool way to bring the community together and still kind of honor that the students and their achievements.
Sorry, I couldn't get my bar to pop up so I could unmute. So I work with the Vice President of Student Life to co-advise our Student Government Association. And this group of students lobbies in Topeka for legislation that affects PSU. They also have monthly meetings. So in addition to the President and Vice President of SGA going to KBOR, they meet with Dr. Scott on a monthly basis. And then there are currently 40 seats within student government, and those students sit on 60 different committees across campus. So everything from fees and tuition to parking appeals to publications. So they're involved in a lot of different elements across our campus. What just happened? Tech is not my friend today, guys. I am so sorry. Okay, that was super weird. I'm sorry. Are you guys still there?
Yeah, it's still on the same slide. Oh, there it goes.
Okay, sorry. A security measure just popped up and locked me out of my computer. So Student Government Association celebrated 100 years in 2019. At the end of last year, they implemented a new constitution. So this year, in addition to dealing with some things with COVID, they were also working through some new positions within the organization. So they kind of downsized their cabinet. They were previously a 9-person committee down to 6 people. And then we're trying to redistribute some of the power back into Senate to make sure that the senators had a good, clear voice on our campus. Traditionally, they're very involved in trying to provide financial support across campus. So they give out a little over $25,000 to student organizations each semester through the allocations process to help student orgs be successful on our campus. In 2016, they started a thing called the Student Opportunity Grants. They had some students who were ending up with opportunities, particularly internships over the summer, who some of them were in a situation where they almost had to say no to those internships because they couldn't afford to do it. So Student Opportunity Grant helps support students do that. And then Professors Beyond the Classroom is an initiative that was started to help faculty be able to do some experiences outside of the classroom, whether that was some additional technology, taking some different trips and stuff to make sure that the students were having well-rounded experiences on our campus. So those awards happen each year as well. They've been hosting Big Event for the past 17 years, which is, if you haven't heard of it, a community-wide day of service. So they organize other students on our campus to go out and do leaf raking, clean out gutters, and wash windows at properties around Pittsburg. So they had to miss last spring because we weren't here, but they returned to this spring and they had just shy of 300 students who went out and worked on about 50 houses in the Pittsburg area. So it was really great to see them be able to build that relationship. In 2019, they won the Community Impact Award for the Big Event, which is a PSU award. And then last year they won Student Organization of the Year. And over the course of this last year, a lot of their meetings have been held virtually. So that's how the students are staying engaged and still able to reach out to their peers. Recent initiatives, as I mentioned before, they kind of started off the Gorilla Pantry and then they helped advocate for the move to the Student Center last year. In a move to be more inclusive of some of the awards on our campus, we eliminated the language man and woman from outstanding seniors. So now we just have outstanding seniors that are awarded to kind of make that a more welcoming program for a lot of other individuals. They continue to advocate for open education resources. So resources that that aren't going to cost them maybe the same that textbooks are going to, so that they can help lower those expenses for their peers. A big project that they had this spring was working to put menstrual products in women's bathrooms. So they're currently piloting that program in the student center, the library, and the rec center. And so they have cute little boxes that are in there, and they're kind of monitoring how much product is going through and overseeing that project. They continue to advocate for more mental health support from the institution. That's been a big project for them for the last 3 years. And then they're always looking for additional ways to include financial aid for students, whether that's through scholarships, grants, experiences, just ways to help them be more successful on campus as well.
Okay, now we're going to dive a little bit into fraternity and sorority life. So fraternity and sorority life is one of our largest single communities on campus. We have 13 chapters, about 500 to 550 students depending on the semester. So, and definitely one of the longest standing communities here at Pitt State. So our 13 chapters fall into 4 different categories. So our Panhellenic chapters, our Panhellenic sororities, Alpha Gamma Delta, Alpha Sigma Alpha, and Sigma Sigma Sigma. Our multicultural organizations are Alpha Phi Alpha and Lambda Pi Upsilon. Our interfraternity council fraternities are Lambda Chi Alpha, Pi Kappa Alpha, Sigma Tau Gamma, Sigma Phi Epsilon, Sigma Chi, and Phi Sigma Kappa. And our religious organizations are Gamma Alpha Lambda and Chi Omicron Rho. So several of them are new. We'll talk about some activations here. Gamma Alpha Lambda and Chi Omicron Rho have existed on our campus for a little bit, but now actually report through the fraternity and sorority life area, which is great as we continue to build our community to be more inclusive and stronger. So our recent activations include Alpha Phi Alpha and Lambda Pi Upsilon. So after 23 years of being inactive, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, we activated on our campus in the spring of 2018. Alpha Phi Alpha belongs to the National Panhellenic Council. Although Alpha is the only one currently active on our campus, the National Council represents 9 historically African American organizations. Alpha has continued to build into a very, very strong brotherhood and has hosted several educational events, step shows, and other unique events to their chapter. Last year, they even traveled to Washburn and won their annual step show and brought that win home to Pitt State, which I just think is really cool. Lambda Pi Upsilon established in the fall of 2019 after a year of really hard work by a group of women that are very strong and powerful and did a lot of work to get to where they are today. The 3 women that are pictured were able to cross into sisterhood after a lot of work. Chi chapter here at Pitt State was the 3rd chapter of LPIU to establish in the Midwest and the 2nd in Kansas. So they do have a sister chapter at Wichita State, which they do a lot of work with. They're continuing to work hard at intake, but unfortunately, right after activation, we went into COVID. So they're working really, really hard. That definitely has thrown a wrench into their plans, but they're keeping on it. So they are the first organization to belong to the National Association of Latino Fraternal Organizations on our campus, and hopefully not the last. So it's definitely a big milestone for our campus to have that chapter here. If we were to welcome you to campus, I know a lot of people like to look at our chapter houses and see what's going on with them. So I thought I'd give you a virtual tour of these houses. So we do currently have 9 chapter houses, 8 are pictured here. We'll go see the last one in a second on the next slide. But each house is run by either the chapter, an alum board, or the national organization. So the university actually doesn't own or possess any of those properties. But I know everyone loves to catch a glimpse of them as they come to campus. So our newest chapter house, Alpha Gamma Delta, built their new house in the fall of 19 is when it was completed. I also included the picture of their old house in case that brings back some memories. I think that house existed for a long time in the yellow and things like that. But this brand new chapter house has 22 beds, multiple living spaces, balcony, giant kitchen, all top of the line. It was celebrated and dedicated in the fall of 19 with open houses, including a visit from their national organization president, which they're very excited to host, and we don't get a lot of national presidents here. So it was really great to see them get to celebrate not only their house, but their national sisterhood and things like that. I think we'll start to see several other chapters are looking at, not because of GAM, but after GAM did their house, you'll see several others, I think, in the next few years, update, renovate, make some changes. So I think we'll see some new houses here pretty soon. So because our community has been here for a long, long time, we are starting to hit some pretty big milestones. So the community itself turned 100 years old in 2018. In 2020, Lambda Chi Alpha celebrated 55 years here on campus, and Alpha Sigma Alpha celebrated 100 years on campus. Right before the pandemic hit, they were able to celebrate with a really big alumni reunion here on campus, and they were really grateful to have that experience before everything kind of happened. Because of COVID, obviously this year we encountered some major changes within the community. I am incredibly proud of how chapters have still pushed through the pandemic in the wake of restrictions and social distancing. None of our students have given themselves enough credit, I think, through this entire process. Every student has really flipped the way they had to think and the way they did all the things they were used to doing. A lot of them could have shut down and said, no, we're just going to wait it out. We're not going to do anything extra. We're going to put in the bare minimum and just exist. But they didn't do that. Our students really rallied to put together creative philanthropy events like virtual craft fairs and virtual fun runs, and they fought for what they wanted and needed. And thankfully, Pitt State was able to remain open for the most part, and they could do a lot of what they wanted to do just with some restrictions and things like that. We were able to hold a socially distanced Panhellenic Recruitment. We were the first group on campus to successfully hold something in person with the new restrictions, which were before school starts, so it's kind of cheating. But I'm really proud of the way that the women did that, and we were able to do that and kind of set an example for people throughout the year. We were able, thankfully, to maintain overall membership. I think students still came in with the want and need to be connected, and we were able to do that. We usually host a new member education session in the fall for all of our new members, which is usually about 200 people. Unfortunately, we couldn't do that, but we were able, I think the funnest part was to create a new member education handbook. And so we hadn't had that before. And it not only taught them, educational practices around safety and alcohol and things like that, but also how to be a student at Pitt State, like even down to like, where are the discounts on campus and where can we go in town to get, 10% off our meal. And it was fun to watch the students, one, put together that book, but also learn from it together. This spring, we were able to hold a Greek week, which was great. Although it was different, chapters got to do faculty appreciation and social media challenges. You can view their competition videos if you want a good laugh on Campus Activities YouTube page. It's pretty fun. We raised almost 1,000 food items for our campus pantry, which Eva talked about a little bit earlier, and 133,000 pop tabs for Ronald McDonald House. So that was really cool. We also were able, I think one perk of COVID is that everything went virtual. And so all of our council officers were able to celebrate and attend our virtual academies. Usually we can't afford to send them all because that requires flights and things like that. But all 12 officers were able to attend academies this year instead of the 1 or 2 we normally get to send. So I think that definitely was a perk and something they really cherish through their time. Also, just in the future, Sigma is going to celebrate a really big milestone too. So if you're involved with that chapter, definitely look out for, I think, some fun things to come. In addition to all those things, our students pride themselves on being involved in campus in general and leadership. So 65% of our population are involved in groups outside of their chapter. So that is, there are things all over campus, biology club, Be the Match, lots of different student organizations. And then 25% of those students, their involvement includes leadership role. So whether they're president or vice president or secretary or just some chair position, they're not only making a difference in their chapter, but at other places around campus. And I think this is the first time since I've been here this has happened, but currently both the homecoming royalty positions are fraternity and life members. The SGA president, the GAB president, and the homecoming steering chair are all members of fraternity and sorority life. So definitely something that's really, really cool this year that only comes around every once in a while, that we hold all of those things. So that's really cool this year. And then my last slide for fraternity and sorority life are just some quick facts for all of you. Information about, we have about 5,000 service hours a year that our students donate to the community. And on average, our chapters raise about $25,000 for their individual philanthropies and things like that. So just some fast facts to end up my part of the presentation.
All right, and now it's my turn. Again, I'm Emily Flores, and I'm Assistant Director of Student Diversity Programs. I've been within this role capacity for 2 years, and before that I was in the Office of Admission recruiting for Pitt State, and I started a week after my graduation back in May of 2016. So I've been a PSU employee for 5 years now, and prior to that I worked within the Office of Student Diversity as a student employee, and I squeezed the juice out of any opportunity that arose through being involved in this office. So our Office of Student Diversity, we serve domestic minority, and those are the members of an underrepresented community. So our domestic minority makes up about 18% of PSU population. When you think about it, students come here from all different walks of life and whatnot. They're here for 9 months out of the 12 months. So this becomes their home. So us in student life really make sure of that this truly does become their home and that there's a sense of belonging. Diversity exists within the simplicity, or rather complexity, of just two individuals. So imagine a campus of almost 7,000 students from different backgrounds. So the OSD targets the students that might need a little bit of a push or help in forming part of a community and feel part of something. Our mission is to cultivate a culture of respect, awareness, and understanding among PSU students, faculty, and staff, and we celebrate diversity both on campus as well as off campus in the community. And the way we facilitate that, and that's the framework that we build off of. And so we bring in diversity seminars and workshops. We provide support for student organizations, and I'll talk about those. And then we celebrate cultural heritage months. Our students get to go to leadership conferences. There are student development programs. And here in the OSD, we also have what is known as the Multicultural Resource Center. In fact, I think that the OSD was known as the MRC. But we do have a lab with computer, printers, books and magazines. Our students don't really use books and magazines anymore. They're not coming in to check out any solid copy, hard copy of anything, but we have them here. They come in mostly for our electronic resources. And so we're glad that we're able to help in that area. Next slide, I think okay, so these are the student organizations that we've honed in, our arms have stretched out and kind of gathered them together. So that's a Black Student Organization, Black Student Association, Hispanics of Today, Native American Student Association. We recently heard Anna talk about the Lambda Pi Upsilon sorority, Latinas Poderosas Unidas Incorporated, which was known as Spotted Stilettos, and I wanted to bring up their hard work, their year of hard work. So that's why they're on here. And then also from Lambda Pi Upsilon stemmed a group known as Altruistic Alliance of University Women. And recently we brought in Gender and Sexuality Alliance, which just a few days ago they were known as PRISM, even on Girl Engage and on their Facebook. So now they've rebranded to be known as Gender and Sexuality Alliance. I imagine that that's a more common phrase that you could hear at different institutions. So some of the traditional OSD events that don't just pertain to specific student organization are these that are listed here. So at the very beginning of the school year, the first week, welcome week, we have what is known, or we call it OSD Social Mixer. And so we bring in students that have marked on their application that they are of minority, and we do what we know to do best, which is to gather and have food and music and laughter. so that they can learn about the community that already exists and how the new students can form part of those organizations. Then we also have, well, we've had, and I'm not sure how long it's been since we've had the OSD barbecue, but I got to be part of that as a student here, and I know that we've had it a couple times, but at the Oval and right at the center and heart of the campus, we got a big grill and music, and our students that form part of the OSD fam, they're out serving, and not just students, but all of faculty and staff. So all of PSU comes through the Oval and gets a burger, and it's a BYOB, build your own burger. So I know that in the past we've had even taco sauce at the bar to put on your burger. So veggie burgers, and that kind of feeds into this notion of diversity and the differences, and let's celebrate the deliciousness of differences. Anyway, so, and then we've also had OSD Splash Bash at the pool that we have at the Weed, the indoor pool. They've had that. Those were done years consecutively. We have it in the past 2 years, but I know that the students have really enjoyed that. Friendsgiving, again, food. When it's food, we're there, we're gathered. During November, the month of November, our students are wrapping up the semester anyway, so it's a really nice way of getting together and just enjoying one another. Speakers, we bring in different speakers, and a lot of the times we are able to offer the students to have a meet and greet with them. So the students can pick at their brain, just kind of get inspired, connect with them, network with them, and envision more of their career choices based off of the conversation that they have with speakers. Tilford Read. So Tilford is a group here on campus that is composed of different just volunteers. It's any faculty member or staff can join Tilford group, and our mission is more on the multicultural spectrum and making sure that we're holistic. And so we've gathered up something kind of known as like cultural readings. Our students wanted cultural readings, and so we launched successfully our first group last year, and it was a collection of students from BSA and HOT and some outside students that showed interest in forming part of that too, and it's an enlightening experience. We read a book known as Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and the students actually got to meet him. And that's one of the pictures there. They're holding the book. And then we gathered and we recorded this meeting, and I have the YouTube link that I can share later on when I'm not double or multitasking. And it's been amazing. And from that, we went on to a second round, and they were all held through Zoom. But it was an illustrated memoir. So it was really neat because we were able to kind of just look at the illustrations of this book through Zoom and read it together. The library purchased a lot of these books and gave it to the people. So not only did we have it electronically, but we also had the hard copy with us, reading along and just diving into some really good conversations. And so the students get to be a part of that as well. Tunnel of Oppression is something that we've done a couple times, and it was very successful. It actually even made it on the Collegio, and I was reading through it. But we brought out a number of student organizations across campus, and because we wanted to make it holistic. So Students for Violence Prevention and even a community entity known as Safe House was able to come out and present interactive exhibits that consisted of several different topics and that shared information about different forms of oppression, so that it would be enlightening for people who've never walked within those shoes. So it was very much a learning experience for, again, not just the students, but the faculty and staff that are here at PSU. Our next slide, I think it's like a collage of BSA and all of its glory, or maybe just like a percentage of its glory. This is only a couple of things that we've done, but there up top left is when they were gathered with Yell Like Hell, and they won Yell Like Hell, I believe, back in 2018. And I think they partnered up with HOT. So this is BSA and HOT in that picture. Just within this past year, we had to get creative for sure. And so we held a panel, and it was live broadcast. It was viewed by 1.7 thousand people. And they talked about the patterns that we've seen in the social injustices against people of the Black community. And we brought in 2 officers from here in Pittsburgh, and then there was a professor, and then we had 3 students who had a very real conversation, challenging conversation. It's on Facebook. That's another link that I can share later on. But our students are very, very just hungry for social change and justice, and they see how they are capable and have the potential, and they have a voice, and they're revolutionary, and so they do what they can within their arm's length, and so they are here on campus, and so they do a lot of things throughout the year for those things. Last summer, this is not a student activity, but the community did reach out to our student organization to lead the peace rally for Pittsburg, Kansas. And so there's some of our students right at the forefront of the peace rally that we held in Pittsburgh back in June of 2020. But yes, we flourish, and then we also have a very, very vibrant Black History Month in the month of February. We are alive and active all throughout the year, but we definitely bring in a lot of our more well-known organization events in the month of February. So Gospel Explosion is one that we keep on doing every year. Martin Luther King Jr. Ball is also very, very popular for the students because they get to wear their old prom dress and tuxes and get to show off and have a lot of fun. So that's a little bit of BSA. And then Hispanics of Today, again, another vibrant and active group throughout the year. We start off the academic year with Hispanic Heritage Month. So they gather up, and their students volunteer a lot to do food and their cultures, different cultures. There's different cultures within Hispanic. We get to eat from each other's culture, food, and then celebrate with live music. There's a student there that is doing loteria with our community, and it's a well-attended event as well. But yeah, this past year, since the year started right after the pandemic and it was Hispanic Heritage Month, they weren't sure what all to do. So we didn't get to do much that was in person. A lot of it was virtual. So if you go to their Instagram, you'll see a lot of the things that they did do, which was virtual. So the next one is Native American Student Association. This just reactivated back in January of 2020 is when we were able to successfully have a group of students who were committed to it. And then they weren't faced by this pandemic, and we went full-fledged on a very rich Native American Heritage Month. And those are the different posters that we were seeing, or flyers that we got to hold events on. And we are award-winning, actually, for missing and murdered Indigenous women. And Dr. Sarah Deere, she's on sabbatical, but she was a KU professor, and she dove into conversations about missing and murdered Indigenous women, which is something that was even new to me last year. So those students are very, very excited for what they're doing on campus and what they're going to do. They have a lot of momentum that they've gathered. And so I'm excited for next year as well. Spotted Stilettos, this is the name given to the interest group that later on became Lambda Pi Upsilon. This was a collection of fierce young women that were hungry to have a community here that empowered them. And so they wanted to form part of a sorority, and they wanted it to be a Latina-based sorority. And I remember when they caught me in a hallway, and I was in an office of admission. I was working at the office of admission, and with big eyes, they were like, we want to do this. We want your help. So collective effort between FSL and the OSD, we were able to bring about LPIU. And they were very excited, and it was a whole year of, as you can see, event planning and a lot of philanthropy, and they learned a lot about themselves and a lot about what they can do. So that is another collage of what they did throughout the year. And then from it also stemmed Altruistic Alliance of University Women, and this is a group that now hosts what is known as Women Crushing It Wednesday, an event held in the month of March, Women's History Month, to empower women and young women on campus. And we go into like I am statements, the power of words, and affirmation for yourself and worthiness. And we get to pamper one another. I'll leave it at that. And Big 12 is the leadership, one of the leadership conferences that we get to take some of our students to. And they attend workshops and job fairs. They participate in mock interviews. And again, they get to learn from speakers and learn about their past, their history, what they went through that got them to where they're at, or starting from zero, now look at me. And so some of our students get really, really inspired by that, come back to campus to fulfill purpose, and are fired up by those. The next slide is for USHLI, that stands for United States Hispanic Leadership Institute, and this is in Chicago. And so we get a delegate of students that go to these conferences as well. And again, they're impactful for the students. They develop them in a professional academic way as well, where they come back and want to hold some of the events, some of the things that they learned about, they want to see them here on campus. So always love, because this motivates students to also go to the very actively attending meetings and all of our events that we hold, because they know if they go to these, which is the criteria to go to USHLI and get to go to Chicago. So this is a huge motivator for them. OSD milestone, I talked about most of these, so I'll just wrap it up and hand it to you, Eva. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily. So kind of some of the things that our organizations faced as a whole over 2020, 2021 were lots of restrictions, particularly in the fall, around what they could do in terms of meeting in person. So there were a lot of guidelines and restrictions in place. We are currently working our way out of those. So we've been working under a 50% capacity for most things. It's approved on a case-by-case basis to exceed those things. PSU is still under a mask policy at this point in the game. There's been some restrictions around food. We are now doing travel on a case-by-case basis. So it's exciting to see things open up and our students be able to kind of get back to those pre-COVID standards. And we've definitely seen a lot more in-person activity over the course of the semester, which makes us very hopeful for what fall 21 will look like. We've had a lot of reports of stress, and our students have had a lot of personal challenges. So some of them have had to step away from leadership roles or have needed extra support. One of the things that the institution was able to do was do some Zoom counseling as well. So that's been super helpful for our students. But students are resilient and they adapted. They came up with lots of new ideas, technology. Groups partnered with other groups that they hadn't partnered with before. We saw a lot of things on Zoom. We saw people doing we have a group on campus who works with adults with learning disabilities in the community, to introduce their partnerships. At the beginning of the year, they did a drive-by of the off-campus individuals so that they could meet the on-campus students, but not violate any of those distances and stuff. So they've definitely been thinking outside the box to make sure their organizations can move forward. Any given semester at our campus, we have over 150 organizations and we are still holding, we're at 158, I think, right now in terms of how many are registered. And Gorilla Engage, the platform I talked about a little bit earlier, we had over 2,600 different student logins from the start of the year until now. So our students are getting on there. They're checking out their memberships. They're looking to see what events are happening on campus, which has been really good to see. And then Our students have hosted over 600 open meetings and events from August 17th until the middle of April. So they've actually hosted closer to 900 events in total, but those events would have included things that were closed for only members only. So the 600 piece really comes into play, that those were things that any student could see on Engage, could show up and attend, whether it was a business meeting or whether it was an activity that the organization was hosting. So even though it maybe seemed a little bit quieter on our campus because some of those things were virtual activities, the student orgs were still making about 2.5 events a day, and that included winter break and weekends. So we're really proud of the accomplishments that they've had over the past year. And our alumni are still making an impact on our students always, but we've seen some groups really step up this year. There's been, I think, a lot more guest speaking engagements and presentations because we couldn't always have somebody travel in. I think people were a lot more open to doing the virtual stuff. So there have been some tours, groups that have been able to bring in other professionals. So it's been really cool to see those things happening. We have a lot of alumni who serve as an off-campus advisor or a mentor or a facilitator for our students. Sometimes that's in a singular capacity. Sometimes our organizations have boards that they work with. It really kind of varies by the type of group that they are. We have people that help with event sponsorships. Rugby's got some great people that always are helping them. They actually do like an alumni versus current match every year. And there are some other groups that do stuff like that as well. And then in April, when we have our leadership awards, the PSU leadership awards, we give over $15,000 away in scholarships for individual students. And those scholarships range anywhere from $500 to $2,000. So it's really impactful for the student leaders on our campus to benefit from that. And then last year, thanks to an endowment from Wilma Minton, there is now an award that goes to our student organizations as well. So the new or most improved organization and the organization of the year also, in addition to getting their pretty flashy, awesome trophy, get a little bit of financial assistance to continue their efforts for the next year, which has been really cool. So lots of people helping our organizations both on and off campus be successful. And that takes us into questions, and I'm hopefully going to stop screen sharing. So does anybody have questions? I can see, okay, Leanna, so COVID vaccinations from the perspective of just the average student or the average employee at Pitt State have been pretty widely available around here. There was a little bit of rescheduling when the Johnson & Johnson one got pulled. And so they had to do a little bit of reconfiguring to do that. There have been quite a few in the community as well. And so the institution's been pushing really hard in terms of getting the information out to faculty, staff, and students when they are available on our campus, but also kind of when they're available in Crawford County. Obviously, it's every individual's choice whether or not they are going to get vaccinated. I don't know, campus activities is probably a pretty big fan of it. So, because it helps us feel a little bit safer putting our people together. But there's been a lot of support, and there was an incentive. I don't know if I have mine on my desk anymore. I had it. Oh, I do. Hang on. So as an incentive for faculty, staff, and students, because there wasn't necessarily like big financial incentives, and you may have seen it on social media, they did really cute these vaccination shirts. So they crossed out the gorilla for Gorilla Nation and made vaccination. So you can see these across campus too. And initially that was a thing for just faculty and staff, but they have opened it up to students. So it's really cool to see lots of different people on campus be able to do that. So are there other questions that we can field for you, groups you want to hear about? We will do our best to cover everybody. And you can directly ask us here, or you can type them in the chat, whatever's easiest for everybody.
Okay. Well, if there isn't any questions, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. So thank you to Eva, Mary, Anna, and Emily for joining us today. That was a great student life update. hopefully you all learned a lot about what's going on here at PSU, and maybe you brought up some good nostalgic memories from your time here when you were active on campus as well. If you don't have any other questions, I think just one more reminder, we will see you again at 1 o'clock Central Standard Time for our meeting with President Scott and our Half Century Club induction ceremony. So we hope you're all there. Don't forget to wear your medallions. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. We really appreciate it. And we'll see everyone else at 1.
Thank you.
Thank you.